So first of all, again, thank you everyone for being here. Our work continues to progress out there at the site where the section of Potomac Interceptor collapsed. We have not had any overflows that have entered the Potomac River for more than 2 weeks now. Today is actually the 15th day that we're going into without any overflows. Our pumping operations, that bypass pumping system, continues to work well in being able to divert the wastewater around the damaged pipe section and back into the Potomac Interceptor. Earlier last week, we did have some issues where, with the heavy rains, where we were encountering stormwater running off from the American Legion Bridge and Clara Barton Parkway into our pumping site, creating sort of a cascading waterfall into the Potomac Interceptor where we were pumping things out, as well as flooding the site. So we engaged with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to assist us with some stormwater mitigation, and they have been outside, and we're really appreciative of their work. It's really helping us out on the site. So no issues as a result of the rains and the snow overnight, and the pumping continues to operate well to be able to contain any overflows for right now. One challenge we did encounter is the excavation of this 30-foot rock dam that we had told folks about, I think a week or two ago. As we have gone in, we've had our crews actually inside the damaged section of the pipe, removing large rocks and debris. They have pretty much cleared out that site. And as we were able to better assess the condition of the pipe, the immediate pipe sections from where it collapsed, it was determined that that pipe was too compromised and it was unsafe for us to have workers inside the pipe manually assisting in removing that rock dam. So we had to take another approach. And what we're doing right now is we are beginning excavation between the collapsed site and then another access point into the Potomac Interceptor that we had excavated. So that process is underway right now. Once we excavate down to that pipe section where that rock dam is located, we will cut into the crown of the pipe so that we can access that rock dam and remove those rocks that way. And that will help facilitate our repair process. That work is moving along. Our goal is, and we do expect that we'll be able to restore full flow to the Potomac Interceptor by mid-March as we continue our emergency repairs. And that will eliminate the need for this bypass system that we have and the pumping operation that we have going on. We also continue to coordinate with DOEE, HCEMA, MDE, EPA, and as I mentioned earlier, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers at the site and developing our environmental restoration plans. We have been working with the Army Corps on some possible environmental mitigations that we may be able to implement prior to the full restoration. So I'm going to turn it over now to Colonel Para, and I apologize if I'm not quite saying that right, Colonel, but if you could introduce yourself and provide an update on the Corps' work.
Well, thank you very much, Sherry. I just want to make sure that I'm coming in okay.
Yep.
Okay, yep, no, you got it right. Colonel Francis Perra, I'm the commander for the Baltimore District of the Army Corps of Engineers. So the Army Corps of Engineers has been deployed in response to this event as part of a federal team led by the EPA in conjunction with FEMA. We're operating under authorities for Emergency Support Function 3, which is focused on public works, and that's all under the National Response Framework. So this is an authority tied directly to the President's declaration at the end of last week. So we've got two immediate roles that we're focused on, in partnership with this site. And, the first one is safeguarding and the second one is enabling. As far as, the role of safeguarding, what we're doing is exactly what you talked about. We're safeguarding the DC water repair operation. We're doing that by diverting water away from the bypass pumping site to avoid compromising equipment and any potential sewage overflow that this heavy runoff could cause. We're also safeguarding the environment, right? What we're trying to do is mitigate any additional contamination into the Potomac by keeping the stormwater off from traveling against that contaminated soil and then running back into the Potomac. So we've developed a number of solutions to be able to kind of get after that. We arrived on the ground on Saturday morning. By Sunday night, portions of that solution were already in place and operating in order to beat the storm. Really proud of the team and what they were able to accomplish in that short amount of time, and we're happy to be part of this effort. For the second part, it's enabling, right? And I think that talks a little bit about, the solutions that we're trying to work toward. Is we're on the ground working to find ways where the federal team can help DC Water deliver a timely and quality solution. So, as we look at the portion that you talked about, looking at how we're kind of mitigating some of that surface contamination is something that we're talking through right now. We're reviewing a couple of courses of action, working hand in hand with DC Water engineers. We're also reaching back into the USACE enterprise, right? We've got Center of Excellence that are tied to environmental mitigation and remediation. We are looking at that expertise to kind of help us develop solutions that we can share with our DC Water partners to help develop a more timely and effective solution that will help not only just the operation, but the environment as well. I think one of the things, Sherry, that I do want to close with is, for the Baltimore district, we are used to operating in the emergency management space, but normal day-to-day business, we do the Washington Aqueduct. And the Washington Aqueduct, obviously, is probably on the first thought when we start to think about the Potomac Interceptor and the impact on the local communities. Right now, we're still seeing treatable levels even at our downstream intake from what we're seeing going into the Potomac. So we're in a much different location, a spot than where we were when this event started. And right now, we've got high confidence that we're going to continue to be able to deliver high quality drinking water to the customers in DC, Fairfax, and Arlington. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and take some questions if you have them. And if you could go ahead and raise your hand, and then Emmanuel will take care of unmuting you one by one. And please tell me who you are when you are unmuted.
Okay, I'm going to unmute this. Hold on. So caller 997-15-16, you're unmuted. I'm sorry, 997-15-76, you're unmuted.
Go ahead with your question.
Hey, it's Mark.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Mark Seagraves at NBC4. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Mark.
Yes.
Great, I appreciate it. Hey, I just had two quick questions, one for each. Sherry, when you talked about this kind of, the problem that you guys encountered with making it unsafe to go in and having to work around, you indicated that you seem to be still on track for mid-March to, and I just want to get this right, that you're still on track. This has not added any additional delay to your anticipation to having the pipe repaired to a point where it is fully functional and you can go to the additional work after that. And then for the Army Corps, I'm just wondering if the Colonel could just give a little bit more specificity about the efforts to kind of protect the environment that he spoke of. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and go first. Mark, yes, you are correct. We're still on target for having the full flow and functionality restored to the Potomac Interceptor by mid-March. Of course, that's the way things look right now, but as you have seen throughout this process, we've run into challenges along the way, and so that timeline could slip, but for right now, we are on target for mid-March to restore the full flow and functionality into the Potomac Interceptor, which will alleviate those concerns for overflows and eliminate the need for the C&O Canal to be used in this bypass pumping operation.
And Mark, to the second part of your question about kind of the specific courses of action that we're kind of employing right now as part of this response. So what we're trying to do is first to be able to protect the site is, if you look at the geography, most of the water is really coming across the Potomac Interceptor site from probably like the north and the east. And it's hard to say without a map, but pretty much it's coming from almost across the street. And it's really kind of inundating the area as it's moving toward the Potomac. What we're trying to do is we're trying to catch that water. So we've built a series of kind of pooling and pumping locations where we're collecting all that water using the existing drainage system. We're creating ponds, and from those ponds, we've got diversions that we're creating through a pumping system that we're moving that water from those ponds past our site over to the Potomac. So this is now water that's normal stormwater runoff, clean runoff, but for the most part, we're just pumping it right back into the Potomac. It's not creating, it's not touching any other of the contaminated areas. So that's one piece. And then at the same time, because we're pulling and controlling that, it's really preventing it from moving towards the pump site itself. So in that respect, we're preventing all that inundation that Sherry talked about earlier that they're experiencing, because what that allows us to do is we get to keep DC Water on track, right? We don't want to take them off their path to their mid-March kind of completion date for this initial repair. So if we're doing that much, I think we're successful in the federal space.
Okay, next person. I think it's Liberty. Is it?
I think next in the lineup actually is Dana with Washington Post.
Okay, Dana. Okay, that's
Okay.
fine.
Hold on 1 second. All right, Dana, you're unmuted.
Go ahead, Dana. Dana.
You may have to press *6 on your end, I believe, to unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry, there's way too
There
many
you go.
buttons here for me. Sorry about that. Thanks for coming on, you guys. Colonel, you mentioned, I know you guys have heard these concerns, but please repeat them since we write for the general public. Is the drinking water impacted? And what's the aqueduct's role? And what kind of measurements are being taken right there at the aqueduct? And how have you seen those change, please?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So to your first question, the drinking water is not impacted. We continue to work off a gravity-fed system that's actually north of the Potomac spill response. So the water that is feeding the intakes that's going into the treatment process is completely untouched by everything that's happening here at the Potomac Interceptor site. Some of the things that I talked about, a little earlier was if we ever had to use our, downstream intake. And right now that's currently closed. It's been closed for several months and is not impacted by this at all. Some of the things that we've done to really change, though, right, is one, we've made sure that we've increased our testing. Right, we increased our testing at our northern location, and we also increased our testing at our southern intake location. And what that's going to do is that's going to help us kind of monitor the progress of this response. And what we're doing is we're sharing that data with our water community partners, because it's going to help us establish a baseline for where we want to get back to, right? We've been recording these levels for numerous years. You got to remember that the Washington Aqueduct has been online since 1858. And throughout that time, right, we've always been a part of this effort. We've always had a testing capability. We even have an EPA certified testing lab at the Washington Aqueduct, right? We do over 65,000 samples every year, right, to make sure that the water is to the highest quality. So all of those pieces are in place right now. And if anything, we're going to be doing more than 65,000 this year, because we are now testing on a more frequent basis, because we want to make sure that everyone has the confidence, right, that we are delivering a safe solution to them as far as drinking water goes. I hope that answers your question.
And let me just add real quick for folks who maybe don't understand, because I know this has been a little bit confusing. DC Water purchases our water from the Washington Aqueduct. So the Washington Aqueduct handles treating and the drinking water for the district and some other municipalities. And we purchase and deliver it to our customers. So just for those who may not be fully aware of how it's set up.
Thank you.
Dana,
Can I ask you a quick? Yes,
Yep.
thanks. And one thing on the cost, I noticed that initially you guys were saying it was going to be about 10 million, and then now it's up to 20 million. Can you run through what that includes and it doesn't include, and why the prices are different, please, Sherry?
Yeah, so the initial $10 million estimate was simply for the cost of the repair at the site. It did not include the additional environmental restoration and remediation that we'd be doing. So the all-in cost for not only the repair, but the restoration and environmental remediation that we'll be doing, the total cost we estimate is about $20 million.
And who's going to pay that?
So I think I would certainly defer to HCMA, who is working with the federal government on the costs as far as the emergency declaration. Normally we would, the normal process for us outside of that emergency declaration and agreement would be for us to share those costs with our wholesale customers who utilize this pipe, and it would be allocated based on a formula that we are guided by on their usage of the pipe.
Okay.
Okay, next reporter, next person.
All right, so now we're with Liberty. Hold on 1 second. All right, Liberty, you're now unmuted.
Liberty, you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Sherry. Hi, Colonel.
Hi.
All right. So you guys mentioned the environmental restoration plan and that you're going to look into start implementing it as soon as these emergency repairs are done. What would those remediation measures look like? And then also, can you kind of, I know you wanted to defer to HCMA, Sherry, but can you kind of explain in the most layman's terms who's going to be funding it? Is it going to be the federal government, or how's that going to work?
So just to be clear, the district makes the emergency declaration, and they are the lead in coordinating with FEMA and the federal government. So they would be best equipped to answer that question. I don't know if the colonel has any more that he can provide on that, but the declaration process works through the district having made that emergency declaration and coordinating with FEMA.
I can only speak to kind of what we know so far, right? So as we know so far that there is, based on the declaration that was released, that there is a direct federal assistance component to that. And with the direct federal assistance, there is a cost share. So right now, the way it's written is a 75-25 cost share, with the federal government picking up to 75%. I do understand that, in the mayor's kind of request last week when she requested federal assistance, she highlighted kind of her intent to really try to seek almost full funding from the federal government to kind of cover the entire effort. I do believe that part of her intent was to limit the impact on the downstream customers for DC Water and the organizations that are tied to this. But I can't speak to that particularly. But I do know that the existing declaration as it is right now is a 75-25. And as Sherry mentioned, I mean, those are other negotiations between both DC and the federal government that would have to be worked through.
Yeah, so to, in a sense, answer your question, it's still not determined exactly how those costs will be covered based on the various agreements and discussions that are ongoing. What I had mentioned earlier about the cost share, that is the normal way we would have, approached this prior to the emergency declaration. And so how the costs will be borne and allocated is still being worked out. And you
Thanks,
had a
Sherry.
second part to your question, Liberty,
Yes,
I think?
the remediation measures in the environmental restoration plan. Can you give us
Yeah.
a little specifics?
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I want to make sure I'm very clear that some of the stuff we're talking about right now are the sort of some immediate things that we can do prior to the approval and acceptance of the full environmental restoration plan. So there are some mitigating things that perhaps can be done now. We're still developing our environmental restoration plan in coordination with EPA, the Army Corps, MDE, DOEE, and our other partners. And we're hoping to have that soon. And when we do have that approved, we will certainly make that public. But there are some mitigating things that we could potentially do. So this isn't the start of the full environmental restoration. I want to be clear. And Colonel, if you want to address the specifics.
No, Sherry, you teed that up perfectly. And I was going to say the same, that many of the solutions that we are currently working with on the ground right now are the immediate solutions to prevent further harm to the environment. So we are working through a couple of courses of actions. What we're really trying to prevent is any of this additional runoff traveling over this contaminated soil and then it taking its natural path that takes it right back to the Potomac. Anything that we can do right now to kind of, reduce the amount of, surface runoff that touches contaminated soil and adds bacteria to the Potomac, we're going to try to do. We're currently working a couple of solutions internally within the Corps of Engineers through our environmental teams and experts through our centers of excellence, as well as what we're doing with the DC Water Engineering team. They also had a short-term plan. Like I said, we're here to help, right? So if we need to adopt that plan and we can operationalize that plan faster, we're going to do that. One of the things that we were, considering, and I'll just kind of walk you through a small solution, was the idea of catching all of that water through a series of check dams, throughout the length of where the debris field is, so that at the end of it, we can capture that water before it enters the Potomac and then pump it back into the interceptor. Obviously, there's some engineering that still has to be kind of worked out. We want to make sure that we keep the Potomac interceptor downstream of where the break was solvent, right? We don't want to impact that operation. So we just have to work through those solutions, but we are thinking about them. They are important to us, and we hope to have a solution here pretty soon.
And I want to add to what the Colonel was saying, as he was describing what they're doing. For those who maybe have not been out to the site and seen this is a very complex, comprehensive process. This is not the types of pumps, the equipment, the things that they are doing are not things that you can just go pull a pump, from somebody, down the street and suddenly start pumping, right? We're dealing with, millions of gallons of wastewater. We're dealing with, pumps that handle millions of gallons of flow every single day. We've had to go as far as Florida and Texas and Michigan to bring the types of pumps and equipment we need here on site to address this issue. So this is not a quick, we're going to hook up a few hoses and kind of process. This is a very complex engineered process that does take some time.
Thank you.
Next.
All right, so I think that's Christine Condon is next. All right, Christine, you're unmuted.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Christine from Maryland Matters. I just also had one question, one for kind of each of you. And I'm sorry, I joined just a few minutes late, so I'm not sure if I missed the answers to these questions. But the first one is for Colonel Para. Could you so you talked about sort of the different things you guys are doing on the site with regard to stormwater. When did you all start that effort? Have you guys been on site since the beginning, or is this something new with regard to the declaration from the president? And my question for Sherry is just, how are you all doing the rock dam excavation? I know you have been doing the work manually down there. How are you doing the excavation now that you've determined that doing it manually is no longer safe? Thank you both.
Hey, Christine, I'll answer your question quickly. I did talk about it a little bit earlier, but basically, we were notified on Friday evening that this was an effort that we were going to be involved in. We quickly rallied the team. We were on the ground, scoping the work, working hand in hand, kind of with the team that was already on the ground from DC Water, making sure that our operations don't impact their operations. And we've been able to prioritize exactly what work we could do that will actually facilitate and enable the work that they're already doing. And that led us to the idea of the stormwater, right? So we quickly mobilized, worked with our contractor, went through a very kind of unique contracting process to be able to, keep focus, keep speed in mind, allow our contractor to lean forward. By the time we got to Sunday morning, we already had materials on the ground. We had our contractor working at 7 o'clock in the morning. And, by the time we closed at 1700 yesterday, which is 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we already had 3 of those pumps in operation, safeguarding the pumps that DC Water is using to bypass the break in the Potomac Interceptor. So I think that was success for us. We're continuing that effort. That's only a portion of the scope of work that we have. We still have down the length of the break that we're still continuing to work. But I think that was a win for us, and we've been involved for like the last 72 hours, and we're going to stay here until it's complete.
Yeah, and I was actually out there on site this morning. They're doing great work out there and getting the system set up and continue to work with us. One thing that you might have missed earlier is what I had described as one of the key reasons that we'd also engaged with the Army Corps of Engineers to do the stormwater management was because when we had the heavy rains last week, we were getting inundated by the runoff from the American Legion Bridge and from the Claire Barton Parkway into where our pumps were. And it created this cascading effect of water going into the Potomac Interceptor where we were pumping everything out. So that puts a strain on our pumps. It also makes it more difficult if there's flooding in that area for our equipment and for our crews to be able to perform the cleaning and the maintenance that they need to do. So that was sort of one of the triggering factors in making that request. And again, this is also because we moved and created this enhanced bypass system right next to the 495 overpass. Prior to that, our pumping operations had been in another area, so earlier rains may not have affected us at that time. But when we moved to that enhanced bypass system right there by the bridge, we did encounter that in the first heavy rain, and that's why we engaged the Corps.
And the other question was just how are you all doing the excavation of that rock dam now?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we basically removed all of the large rocks in the immediate collapse site area. What we discovered is that the pipe on the immediate area right next to where the open section is too compromised, and it's unsafe for us to put workers inside to manually assist with removing those large rocks and debris that are inside the pipe blocking it. So what we've done is we've begun excavating. They're making great progress. I was out on the site this morning, and we are excavating about a 40-foot section between the actual damaged section of pipe and another access pit that we had created to access the Potomac Interceptor. So we're in the process of excavating that. We have to make sure that we stabilize the ground around it. We'll excavate, we'll put in some shoring trench boxes around that. And then we will cut into the crown of the pipe to be able to get to those rocks and pull them out with machinery.
Thank you sorry if that was a repeat. I appreciate it.
No, that's okay. Understood. Okay, next.
All right, next we have Martin. Hold on one second. Martin, you are unmuted.
Martin, do you? Martin, are you unmuted?
You may need to press *6 from your end.
There you go, I think. Okay. Martin, while we're trying to figure that out, let's jump to the next person.
Okay. There's Mike Murillo. Hold on one second. Grab him.
And folks, I do know that folks have some schedules and things that they need to get to. So I don't want to keep Colonel Para too long over. So I'd like to get to the questions of those who immediately have their hands raised right now, and then that's it.
And Mike Murillo,
yeah.
you're unmuted.
Hi, Mike
Okay.
Murillo, WTOP. Thanks for taking our questions here this morning on this. And, first do we have any estimate with the cleanup? I know the focus is on fixing the interceptor right now, but do we have any time frame and ballpark time frame for the greater cleanup that we need to see here because of what took place?
So I don't think we have the timeline nailed down just yet. I mean, that's all part of developing the environmental restoration plan that we have. I can say that the restoration plan will focus on the immediate collapse site area, the creek beds, the surface areas where that wastewater impacted the shoreline along the Potomac River in this immediate area. And as well as, of course, the C&O Canal once that bypass system is deactivated. There is some work, right, that we can sort of maybe start some work, but then, as we said, until that bypass system is deactivated, we can't start the work yet, on the restoration for the C&O Canal. So I think that the timeline is still to be determined based on when the repair is completed and they can really start the full restoration. But there are some things that we are working on to try and do whatever remediation we can, ahead of some of that.
And the second part of my question was, and you may have already answered this talking about the runoff and preparing for that, but the snow and the melting of this recent snow, any complications here with keeping things contained with another event in the mix here?
Yeah, our pumping operation, the enhanced pumping operation that we implemented a few weeks ago has really been able to do the job. We have pumping capacity now on site for well over 100 million gallons a day, which is far exceeds the levels that we normally have in the Potomac Interceptor. And the reason for that additional pumping capacity is that we do occasionally have pumps that end up getting taken out of service to be cleaned and maintained. They get clogged with wipes. And when those come out of service, we need to have additional pumps on hand ready to jump in and do that work. So we've now built in some additional redundancy so that we can improve reliability. And I think you've seen that in the fact that we don't have any overflows that have occurred into the Potomac River in more than 2 weeks now.
Thank you so much.
And Mike, I would just say that the plan that the Corps is putting in to make sure that the bypass, and the diversion of that stormwater happens, that's not temporal, right? That can sustain kind of the duration of this operation. That's the way that we have it built right now. It accounts for all the existing kind of drainage systems as they exist on the ground, right? So we are tying into those drainage systems. We're catching through natural drainage in those ponds, and then we are just diverting them. So that's an effort that will stay as long as it's required to keep, DC Water's pumps operational on the bypass piece, and until we, really establish kind of what the other mitigation plan for the surface contamination would be. So all of those pieces are enduring at this point.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Did we work out the audio issues for Martin?
Martin's in the chat, Sherry. He's having audio problems. Can you read it, or do you want me to read them aloud on his behalf?
Sure. If you want to, you go ahead and read them for me. That's fine.
Yeah. Martin asked, not sure why my audio isn't working, but 2 quick ones. Number 1, how long is the section of the Potomac Interceptor that will eventually have to be fixed?
How long is, you saying?
How long is the section? And will that be fixed via sliping or some other method?
Oh, slip lining. Okay, so we do have a 10-year, $625 million rehabilitation program or project for the Potomac Interceptor. But in this immediate area, what I can tell you is that we had planned to start construction this summer on rehabilitating a 10,000 linear foot segment of the Potomac Interceptor, including this section. What we're doing is once we get that emergency repair done, we are going to accelerate part of that project that was planned for this summer, and we're going to do more than 2,700 linear feet right in this section, and then the rest of that work will continue as planned. The process that we use is something called slip lining, and that is where you essentially push in new sections of pipe to create a pipe within a pipe. There are areas where you can't do slip lining, whether there's elevation changes or if it's not a straight area, right? And in those areas, we use something called a geopolymer, which is sprayed on the inside and is very similar, again, creating a pipe within a pipe using a geopolymer.
He had another question. I'm just going to read it for him. I assume
Yep.
he can't hear us Martin, I hope you're hearing this, buddy. Are there mechanisms to prevent the CNO from overspilling its banks should there be a big rainstorm?
So we have plenty of capacity in the CNO Canal right now. It is also dammed on both ends, so we believe that we've mitigated the risks as much as possible. Is there absolutely no risk? I can't say that because, we could have a once in a, century storm that comes. And in that case, that would certainly impact us. But, under the current conditions and what we're seeing as far as weather events, we do believe that we have the capacity in the CNO Canal to continue to divert this and send it back into the Potomac Interceptor. And of course, we also have the work of the Corps that's helping us to divert some of that, runoff, from streets and neighborhoods and all of that, could have impacted our pumping operations and combined with our through inflows and infiltration. So that is helping us as well.
Yeah, Sherry, I would just add that it's obviously one of the first considerations that we came in when we got on site, and we came to the same conclusion.
I'm sorry, Colonel, you're breaking up for a moment. Colonel, you're breaking up still. I'm going to try that again. Let's circle back to you on that point in just a moment, and we'll go ahead and go to the next question.
Okay, looks like we have Axios. You're now unmuted.
So Axios, you can unmute yourself.
All right, this is Anna Spiegel with Axios DC. How are you?
Yep. Good, thank you.
I had just a quick question for you, Sherry. They mentioned in Friday press conference that that DC would be moving to daily testing versus weekly testing. And does that include, where are those testing location sites, and will those results be reported on a daily basis instead of weekly going forward?
I'm sorry, we're already doing daily water quality sampling. Are you talking about the testing from the district?
Yes.
Okay, so I would have to refer you over to DOE, who would be
Okay.
in charge of doing that. We are working cooperatively, with them and sharing our data and information, but operationally, I'm not sure that we have that information just yet on exactly when that is going to occur. I know that they're working through that to get that established. But you'll need to reach out to them to get more specific details. What I can tell you is that we are monitoring the water quality and doing sampling at 6 locations, one upstream for sort of a baseline at the collapse site. We also added 2 points on Minnie's Island so that one of those points is out towards the river, so we could actually get an idea of what was occurring in the main trunk of the river near the collapse site. And then we also have another testing site, which is sort of, and you might need to be a little bit more familiar with the river in this area, but there are sort of these little channels and inlets that also run, right sort of close to the shoreline, that move a little, that don't flow quite as quickly as the main branch of the river. And so we've gotten a testing location from Minnie's Island in that area so we can get a sense of sort of how it's flowing and what the water quality is there. We have additional testing sites at Georgetown, Fletcher's Boathouse, at the Anacostia National Harbor. So we continue to monitor that. One important thing I think it's for everybody to understand is that we do live in an urban environment where you do get runoff and other things that contribute to the water quality year-round, unrelated to this incident. When we have heavy rains and snowmelt like we've seen, you will see these large variations in the E. coli in the water sampling. So you might one day see it spike really high, because of all that additional runoff that's coming in with the heavy rains and things like that. And then it may drop back down. We saw that one of the testing locations last week. So it's important to be cognizant of the fact that there is a wide variability that is normal for the Potomac River, and particularly the further downstream you get, trying to draw conclusions that is solely related to this incident. You can't draw those direct conclusions because there are so many other factors that also contribute to the runoff into the river.
That's great. I had a really quick other question. The city said they're going to hopefully lift the recreational advisory somewhat soon. Do you know what kind of factors will have to align for those advisories to be lifted?
Those determinations are made by the health department in coordination with the water quality sampling being done by DOEE, and we have every confidence that they will, provide the best information and advice to the public.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay. All right. We have Jaya or Jaya. You're now unmuted.
Hi, this is Jaya with the Georgetown Hoya. And my quick question is, given Georgetown's proximity to the Potomac and the number of students who row, kayak, and spend time along the waterfront, what is the current safety status of the river for recreational use? What precautions should students take? And how do you expect that risk level to change in the coming weeks?
So that is where we're working very closely with DOEE and the Department of Health in the district to provide the information to the public as to their advice on being able to use the water in the district. So right now, out of an abundance of caution, they do have a health advisory out for use of the water, and they will be evaluating that as we continue through this process. Ultimately, it is a personal decision based on the science and the water quality that we're seeing, and the advice of the district and the experts, the subject matter experts who are advising and issue those advisories. So I would keep an eye out on whatever active advisories that the district has for this, and they will continue to work with us closely on the water quality sampling and advise the public accordingly. Okay, next.
I think I have one more hand raised. I think it's Mr. Seagraves again. I think it's a new hand raise. So let me.
Again, Mark?
Oh, he's already enabled. So yeah.
Go ahead, Mark. Mark, you might need to unmute yourself for *6.
Unless that was an old hand raised, but it was at the bottom of the list as a new one. So
Okay. Try that again, Mark. Are you still? Or drop your question in the chat. And while Mark is doing, oh, wait. You there, Mark?
All right. How about
There
now?
you go. That's it.
I'm sorry. I'm old and I'm a Luddite. Hey, again, thank you for this briefing. It is very much helpful, both parties, so I appreciate that. So really quickly, I hope the Colonel is back on. We've had reports of some discoloration in the river today around just below 495, and I'm wondering if that maybe is just a result of your bypass of the rainwater overflow back into the river. And then I'm also wondering, Colonel, if you can just clarify who's in charge. Is it still DC Water, or now because of the federal action, is FEMA or somebody else in charge? Can you clarify as far as the repair effort at the site, who is in charge?
Can you hear me okay, Sherry?
Yeah, we got you, Cynthia.
Okay, very good. Colonel Para was not able to make it back on. Apologies. He's at the site, so he was dealing with network issues. As far as the discoloration goes, Mark, I'm not quite sure. We're going to have to double check on that to see if we have any of that feedback from today. Our folks have been on site all day. So let me check on that and we can get back to you. Now, as far as who is in charge, do you mean, I can tell you, how about this? For the federal oversight of this, this is being ran by EPA. So they are the ones who are looking at the federal oversight of this, but I wouldn't say necessarily that they're in charge. DC Water, obviously, as you all know, is who is running point for infrastructure repairs. But as far as the federal side of this, they are the lead agency.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Cynthia.
Yes, absolutely. One other thing I do want to say, Sherry, I'm just going to take a quick second here. I'm about to put my contact in the chat so that everyone on here has it. If you have follow-up questions for the Corps, feel free to email. The other thing is we're actually getting ready to tee up our own news release that announces our role and has just a little of what we are working on currently on site, as well as, again, the measures that we've taken at Aqueduct to ensure regional water supply. So we will get that out as here shortly. I believe most of your newsrooms and many of you personally are already on our distro list. If you'd like to ensure you get that, again, feel free to just email this message here. I'm about to send that, and we'll get that out to you. That should be within the next 10 minutes here.
Thank you
Thanks
so much,
for having
Cynthia.
us, Sherry. We appreciate it.
Yep. And I think we have, what, 1 or 2 more questions, and then we need to wrap up. Next.
I think, unless I
Or
missed
those
something.
residual hands that are left up.
Yeah, I think we got through them all.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Well, I want to thank everyone again for joining us. If you have any additional questions, I will drop my email in here as well. Hold on, let me do that. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any follow-up questions. And again, I want to thank Cynthia, and please pass along our thanks to Colonel Para for joining us today. We appreciate all of your efforts out there, especially with this storm today and the weather. And I think it's really gone a long way to help us in keeping those repairs going. So thank you everyone for joining us. Please do reach out if you have any follow-ups. Thank you.